We've got some interesting Browns news and rumors coming at you today, but first, we are in a sub battle this week with our other AFC North channels here at Chat Sports, including the Bengals breakdown, which just got started a month or so ago, and Steelers talk. And it's pretty head-to-head, neck and neck right now. So we are in second, trying to get up to first. Let's take down Steelers talk. Let's beat the Steelers inside the walls of Chat Sports and at First Energy Stadium, and I was about to say Heinz Field, but they're shitty Acrisure Stadium or whatever it's called now. So hit that sub button for the best Browns coverage. Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. This is a Browns YouTube channel that has so much talent on its roster. It's tough to really wrap your mind around and process that the Browns have the most talented roster, and I will say, franchise history at this present moment. If you're not excited about the future of this team, I don't know what to tell you. So with that, let's jump into it. Following the big Elijah Moore trade, did the Browns win the trade, right? Everyone loves to know, did you win or did you lose the trade? I'm going to give it 3 Bernie heads, right? I'm not going to go all the way to 4 and say it's an absolute for 2 reasons. One, we got to watch Elijah Moore play before we crown a champion. 2, I think this actually may be a very good instance of both teams might have won the trade, right? The Jets moved on from a receiver that didn't have a spot in their offense because they signed Hardman and Allen Lazard. And the Browns picked up a very much needed speedy receiver at the price of going back 32 picks in the draft. That might be a very good win-win, right? The Jets can get a good player at 42 for another need they have for their roster, and the Browns get a very much needed speedy wide receiver, right? I think both sides may be winners, but I'm going to go with the Browns maybe getting the earlier edge because Cleveland now checks every single box they had this offseason. The Jets got to actually do something with that 42nd overall pick, right? Which, if we know the New York Jets, it's not like they have a fantastic history of drafting players. So for now, I'm going to give the early edge to the Browns because we know what Elijah Moore is, and we have a lot of optimism of what he could become. For the Jets, I got to wait and see what they do with pick 42. Now, I did find this tweet interesting, and I wanted to get it in front of you guys. Computer Cowboy, it's like an NFL Twitter account pretty much at its bare bones. Pick 42 for pick 74 and more. Cleveland gives up the equivalent of a mid-4th round pick in surplus value for more. So there's a couple of ways of looking at what does the actual computer spit out when you take in Elijah Moore and pick 74 for pick 42. I comped it as an early 3rd round pick, but Computer Cowboy says, no, not so fast. Mid-4th round pick, which makes me feel even better about this trade. Now, Elijah Moore, through 2 seasons so far, you've probably seen it all over the place, and I don't know about you, I'm not getting sick and tired of reading or hearing about it. 538 yards, 5 touchdowns in 11 games. If you prorated that over a 17-game season, that's an 800-plus yard receiver and over 7 touchdowns for not even a wide receiver 2, right? When we look at this depth chart for Cleveland, like you can make arguments of who the number 2 really is, DPJ or Moore now, but Elijah Moore in the slot, he played about 50% of the snaps there last year. He talked about that in his press conference today, which we'll get to in just a moment. But right now, this wide receiver room seems pretty full to me. Those 4 guys on screen, all making the roster. That 5th spot will be a battle, I think, if they take 6 between Schwartz, Woods, Grant. I guess I'll include Felton in there to be nice, and maybe another rookie wide receiver. I've got 2 reasons, though, why I really love this trade at its core. Number 1, you added some much-needed speed. Yeah, DeAndre Hopkins or Brandon Cooks would have been cool. They overlapped with Deshaun Watson, and they're better than Elijah Moore. There's no denying that, right? Who wouldn't like D-Hop over Moore? But you needed speed. This brings a new element to this offense. So for that reason, I love this trade. The second reason, you're getting a guy who's on his rookie contract for 2 more years and cheap too, right? Instead of paying DeAndre Hopkins somewhere between $14 to $19 million, you're getting Elijah Moore, a 22-year-old, for $2 million. Plus, with DeAndre Hopkins or Brandon Cooks coming over or someone like that, that's a pretty big contract to take on for this year and the future. With Elijah Moore, you don't have to worry about moving on from Amari Cooper next year because now you've got him for 2 more years on the cheap, and you can afford to keep Cooper next year, which I think if you got D-Hop, probably would have been one or the other for 2024. So if you are thinking this Elijah Moore trade was a good move for the Browns, like this video. And if you don't, go down to the comment section. It's the pinned comment. Let me know why, or if you want to be, a real Boy Scout, you can like the video and tell me you like the trade. This is the pinned comment, though, so let me know. Elijah Moore spoke to the Browns media today, and if you want the Spark Notes or the Cliff Notes or any quick takeaways of it, 2 words, super excited. He probably said it 100 times, and that's fine. Never got tired of hearing about it. He was not salty about the Jets or anything like that. Didn't have anything bad to say about his time in New York. Ultimately, he saw that the Jets just didn't have a role for him in their offense. He was getting somewhat pushed out. He knows how important it is to have a impactful rookie season or rookie contract over those 4 years. Set yourself up nicely for a good payday the first time you hit free agency. And he should be super excited because he's working with a great offense with Deshaun Watson, Nick Chubb, and a bunch of other great players on it too. All right, let's get on to the next segment, though, because I love talking about Elijah Moore, but I feel like I could talk about him all day long. This is a fun one. OBJ, is he coming back? I'm just going to give it one Bernie head. It might as well be fake news, right? But I'll keep it at the sliver of a Bernie head because, well, one, trading for DJ Moore, trading for Elijah Moore likely kills the idea of Odell Beckham Jr. coming back, right? I think the Browns are feeling really confident about where they are in the wide receiver room right now. But the Browns might be approaching that territory of, F it, why not, right? Why not get more good players? And Myles Garrett, I don't think he'd be opposed to having OBJ come back. Someone asked him on Instagram, Myles, get OBJ's ass back here immediately, brother. Garrett's response, I'm working on it. Now, I think this was later deleted, but hey, who knows? If OBJ doesn't get a ton of money elsewhere, look at this tweet he had from a little less than a week ago. I'm just so confused where the quote is from me that said I want 20. All I'm saying is 4 ain't enough. So, if a bunch of other teams are looking at Odell Beckham and they kind of fill their wide receiver need elsewhere, like the Cowboys trading for Brandon Cooks kind of took them out of the mix. If the Chiefs want OBJ and they get DeAndre Hopkins, well, if OBJ's market starts to dry up, if OBJ and his rep go to the Browns and go, you know what, we want to come back, we want to play with Deshaun Watson, and we'll do it for way less than you thought, I wouldn't put it past Andrew Berry to try and get something done. Then Mary Kay wrote an article about this not too long ago, and she said, the Browns attended Beckham's private workout in Arizona where he showed he can run. If the price is right, they won't hesitate to sign him. So I don't know what their ceiling is for Odell Beckham Jr., and I don't know if OBJ is just completely off their radar now that they have Elijah Moore. But if they think, why not even add more talent and just create an absolute unfair Madden Dynasty offense? Tell me Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski wouldn't give that a good thought of consideration? I think they would. But let me know, where do you think OBJ ends up playing? Very curious what your predictions are. We're filming this right now, by the way, during our live show on Thursday. So hopefully by the time you're watching this, he hasn't signed somewhere. But I want to know what you're thinking. Moving on to segment number 3. Should the Browns sign Frank Clark, or will they sign Frank Clark? I'm also going to give this just one Bernie head, but it's a bigger one Bernie head than the OBJ coming back, right? It's like 1.9 Bernie heads. So here's what happened, or here's where this comes from, rather. NFL.com's writer, Nick Shook, wrote about players that would be great fits for different teams, and he picked the Browns as the best fit for Frank Clark. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler in 3 out of the last 4 seasons, so I don't think he has had like a downward spiral since he left the Seahawks. Now, similar to OBJ, could this be just a signing to push this roster over the edge? Right? It's like, why not go out and get another great proven player? Clark's time in Kansas City over 4 years, he might not have been superb in the regular season, but he knew how to get after the quarterback in the postseason. You might be surprised. Go look up Frank Clark's postseason stats. It dwarfs his regular season stats. He's one of the all-time postseason sack leaders. So if the Browns are thinking past Week 18, maybe Frank Clark would be a great guy to have trying to make a postseason run. Now, if you were to slot him in, I think he immediately takes over for Perrion Winfrey or Jordan Elliott, whoever ends up getting that last starting defensive tackle job. I mean, really looking at this room right here, I think Perrion Winfrey or that third or that second defensive tackle position is the only starting job that's not pretty much put in ink right now. It's the only one that's a little bit of a camp battle going into 2023. And then look at this. Like, could you imagine this defensive line, actually? Myles Garrett. Just look at the sacks and tackles for loss. Myles Garrett, Dalvin Tomlinson, Frank Clark, Obo. Like, could you imagine all those guys? The Browns couldn't get anyone with more than like 4 sacks last year outside of Myles Garrett. Here we're looking at 3 players above 5. Why not? I mean, that would not, how could that not be a very fun defensive line right there? So I want you guys to be the GM for me. Should the Browns sign Frank Clark? S for sign or P for pass? I kind of want to say F it and why not, right? I mean, is this team better with Frank Clark? If the answer is yes, and it's not going to cost you that much, it's not like he's stealing precious snaps from a developing Jordan Elliott or Tommy Togiai. Maybe a little bit from Perrion Winfrey, but I'm not even all that sold on Perrion Winfrey ready to be an NFL starting defensive tackle after a slow start for much of last year. So if Frank Clark wants to come over on the cheap, yeah, I'm not going to say no to that. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. If you haven't followed me on Twitter, go ahead and do so. I'm always talking brownies over there. Hit me up at Matthew Petey. DMs are always open. I love interacting with the dog pound. I'm definitely not some big blue check mark who thinks they're too good to reply to people. So let me know what your thoughts are on today's video over on Twitter.